Julien doesn't blog any longer. He wrote 3 books, 2 with Chris, and then he started Breather.com, a flexible office space business that raised $150 million, and he grew it into a thriving and still scrappy multinational. Chris blogs infrequently. It turns out that podcasts and video channels are a lot more popular than when we wrote this. And while we still don't recommend it, people take to sites like Facebook and LinkedIn, now very much more a media site, and Medium to write their posts and voice their ideas. The world is going flat and non-hierarchical, while at the same time being even more unequal than it's ever been. One voice is even more powerful in 2020 than it ever was in 2009. But is it a real voice? You probably won't be surprised if we tell you that. If you went to thispersondoesnotexist.com, you can view a completely convincing portrait of what is not at all a human, but instead a computer-generated unique facsimile. Once you leave the site, that face ceases to exist and will never appear again. So was that a real person? No. But it sure did look like one, and it sure could convince the everyday internet citizen. That's trust today. Is that scary? It is, right? Of course. But at the same time, scary and normal have occasionally become the same thing. It's sort of like a William Gibson novel. Yet every day, we humans grapple with the new, adapt to it, and find ways to make it work for us and make business around it. That ultimately is what Trust Agents was about, although we didn't know it that well then. Technology is a medium, and the social web at that time was a nascent one, growing and fragile. Now it's dominant. But trust is even more powerful online and even easier to leverage to create powerful business opportunities than it was in 2020. Thus, although some technology has changed, humans mostly have not. So let's talk about them and how to be human, both vulnerable and powerful online, and what it can do for you. Chapter 1. Trust, Social Capital, and Media. The Connected Guy. Joe Pistone thought he was going to go undercover for 6 months. Instead, he vanished for 6 years. He was already practically a wise guy. He'd grown up in among the mafia in Paterson, New Jersey, and worked the same kinds of jobs as they did. Like many involved with the mob, Pistone was of Sicilian descent and spoke Italian. When he started showing up at Carmelo's, a restaurant at 1638 York Avenue on the corner of 86th Street and 1 block from the East River, he fit in perfectly. He knew it was a spot in Manhattan where wise guys hung out, and he knew he'd get acquainted eventually. He just didn't know how deep he would get. Turns out that, to go undercover, Pistone knew how to make all the right moves. He knew that in order to be a good undercover agent, he needed to be a good street agent, someone who understood not just how things worked in an office, but out in the city too. He knew all about the mob from growing up around its members, but he had been brought up by a family whose values led him to join the FBI. But the FBI didn't know who he was anymore. No one named Joe Pistone was working for them anymore, nor was there anyone in the company records by that name. His personnel file had been removed, and his desk had been entirely cleaned out. As Pistone himself says of his old life, I obliterated it. While Pistone was immersing himself in mob life, the FBI was trying to figure out who this new guy with the Bonanno family was. Pistone had remade himself into a jewel thief named Donnie Brasco. As it turns out, Pistone was so deep that even FBI surveillance teams who were following him had no idea who they were taking pictures of. The name Donnie Brasco was suddenly everywhere. But the FBI didn't know where he'd come from. Most wise guys had grown up in or near the city. But Brasco's story was that he was from California, and he'd spent time in Florida doing some jobs, i.e. burglaries, before his arrival in New York City. When Pistone was officially brought into the mob, it was by Benjamin Lefty Guns Ruggiero. That day, he became a connected guy, someone connected to the mob, but not officially a made guy or wise guy, which is an official member of the Cosa Nostra. But you don't just get connected to the mob that easily. Pistone had spent more than 6 months working undercover in New York, becoming a regular at Carmelo's before he could gain Ruggiero's trust. It was this patience, this diligence that helped him move quickly up the ranks.